Hello and welcome to a Casio Roland Gaia synthesizer SH-01. You may be familiar, I did 7 tutorials on this synthesizer, helping to teach how to use it, but I have forgotten, I never actually did a review. And here I have the most famous synthesizer I think ever built, because it is the #1 choice for me. As far as synthesis goes, where you're not using PCM tones that emulate trumpets and things like that, where you're just creating tones from a straight wave, this has got to be my best and favorite synthesizer of all time. You might say, why is that? Well, for one, a synthesizer needs lots of oscillators. The gigantic Moogs of the past, those things had 5, 6, 7, 8 oscillators just to begin with. And then you need a filter envelope and filter controls and amplifier controls. You need more than one of those too. So just about every synth on the market today, especially analog synths, have maybe 2 oscillators. They may have a sub-oscillator. They may have 1 filter and 1 filter envelope to deal with the 2 oscillators, and 1 amplifier envelope. Maybe 1 or 2, maybe some have 3 oscillators, and maybe 2 or 3 LFOs. But this one, what you look at on the front panel is, take that front panel and then times it by 2. That panel, another panel, and another panel. You times that panel by 2, 2 and 3, and you got 3 synthesizers. This is basically what you see up front is times 3. Each one of these tones here will create a brand new, different, completely independent synthesizer. The only thing that's not independent is the effects. The effects are overall, and it's the last part of the block as the synth is all 3 tones. They call them tones, but it's a complete synth, including oscillator, low frequency oscillator, filter envelopes, amp envelopes, all the controls on the front you can use 3 times over. So you can make 1 tone, second tone completely different, third tone completely different again. Or each one stacked only slightly different. So what you end up with is a synthesizer, and you'll notice there's not a single menu on here. You don't have to dive into any menus, but there are features that you don't see on the front, where the shift button here will access a lot of different other functions too. So after you get to accustomed to what's on the front controls here, you'll also just love the fact that you can even go deeper after that. So a lot of people want to go, well, what's it sound like? Well, what it sounds like depends on which you program into it. We can go through the preset patches. I can go through some of these presets. Let's go to make 2.8. Let's go to 3.1. Bank 3, 5. These are factory presets that are stored permanently on this machine. I'm just giving you a little sample of what this synth can do as it comes from the factory. And as you can see, there's a wide range. And it can sound like just a plain synthesizer too. But what we have here is a digital synth, not an analog. And I think most musicians would have to have a pretty good ear to hear the difference. Now, if you're playing an analog synthesizer live and it's not being recorded, and you're playing a digital synth live, you can probably hear the difference. But to my old music ears, there's very little difference. So with this synth, you actually got the choice of you can put it in a mono mode, so it acts just like a mono synth, one note at a time, or you can turn it off and and it'll be a polyphony synth. So as you can see, a synthesizer can make a lot of different sounds. A lot of different sounds. And if you go through my 7 tutorials, you will find that it makes a lot of common sounds too. So let's these are all the factory presets from Roland. Let's take a look at something I created myself. This was the synth orchestra. That's my own setting. And let's take a look at here's a solo synth that I tried to emulate one of the Moogs. Now you can tell by the red light over here, the red light indicates what tones are on. So I'm playing just one panel of this synthesizer. Then I set it up where I put a sub bass oscillator on that one. And on this one I put a fifth in to add a second note. And that's on mono mode. Now I can take this with a push of a button and make it polyphony. It wasn't designed to be played as a polysynth, so it doesn't sound very good. It was made from the ground up to the... And I think those oscillators sound pretty smooth for a digital. Again, I'm saying that there's probably a difference that you can hear if you got good ears between the analog synthesizer and the digital synthesizer. Now this is of course a digital synthesizer, but as soon as you record an analog synthesizer digitally, and I don't think there's too many people recording to tape, and even if you do record to tape, eventually it's either going to end up on CD or on MP3 or on a YouTube video, which is all digital. So an analog synth, after it's recorded, I don't know if it has that much of an advantage. Played live, I think they are very musical. I think depending on who makes the synth, like Moog, I think their oscillators are very musical. And when you play them live, they sound good. And that's what I tried to emulate here, is the Moog's very smooth musical oscillator. I'm going to turn off the effects so you hear only the Roland. And one thing about effects, with synthesizers, or with almost any keyboard, you add really good effects and you're going to get really professional sounding instruments. So the synthesizer can only do so much with a straight, clean waveform. A straight, clean waveform is a really sterile and doesn't really sound that good. That's why we have all this control to change it. But a synthesizer is basically made for you to create your own instruments, and that's why we're creating our own here. So let's go to another one that I created. This is it's just a guitar. Here's all the open strings of a guitar. And let's go to another preset. Is 5. This is a acoustic piano. I created this with the 3 oscillators to be just a standard piano. And as you can see, making a piano on a synthesizer is very difficult. But I'm trying to show you the wide range of sounds that this synth can produce without a menu, without diving into anything. Just go right to the control you need. If you're an experienced synthesizer user, this will be just a pleasure to use. One of the things you will notice about synthesizers is the more complicated the panel looks, the easier it is to use the instrument. Something that only has a couple of knobs on it and a big old menu here, and if the menu is not touch sensitive and it has ease of use, if the menu is just a menu where you got to push buttons and scroll around with another button, it takes probably 10 times longer to program a sound for me on something like that. Even though I know what I want and know where I need to go, diving into menus creates a very long, arduous process, and you never get to actually see what's in front of you. This one, you're actually seeing what's in front of you all the time. As you're working on an amp envelope, you might go, now what did I do with the oscillator? What? And then you have to, with a menu-driven synth, you got to back out of that, back in, find an oscillator menu on the display. None of that you have to do on this. The only confusing part about this synthesizer is it has 3 tones, it's digital, and the front panel does not represent what you're doing when you hit a preset. As soon as you hit a preset, it's playing the piano, whatever I saved. These controls do not show that. But since it's preset and you're playing the piano, it doesn't matter unless you want to change it in the middle of your performance. Then it gets a little more difficult. An analog synthesizer, of course, a true analog modular synthesizer doesn't have presets because you have to take patch cables and push them into everything. So of course this is a lot more convenient. The only disadvantage is, unless they motorize all the controls to actually physically return to like this piano setting, if I push that and all the controls physically were motor driven and went back to the same spot that this saved, then yeah, that would be pretty cool. But we're only talking $600 here, and I don't think that can be done for that kind of money. Probably 2 or 3 times that money, you might get some motorized faders. But there's easy ways around it. And when you're creating tones, I set the synthesizer up in a neutral setting. A neutral setting is basically what you're seeing here, where nothing is being, everything's centered, filters all the way open, all the controls are not being used, and then on the amp envelope I'll just simply take the sustain up to maximum so it works like an organ. So now you see what happened to the piano. As soon as I push this, the preset though, no matter what the panel says, it doesn't matter because it's going to return to the piano. But with this synthesizer set up, when you're creating a brand new tone from just a plain waveform, when it's in neutral like this, now it's actually representing what you are playing if you do a cancel and start from a fresh user bank. So let's listen to a couple more sounds here. This is just a very long, this shows you how long the envelopes can be in this synthesizer. When we take these envelopes out to maximum, and that wasn't maximum, they can get very long to cycle through. And let's take a look at another one. Let's see, 8.7. And I hope that sounded like wind chimes on a windy day to you, because that's what I designed when I made that. The wind comes from the noise generator, which is another oscillator. And so I got 2 tones set up for the chimes, and then the wind is the third one, so that I get wind noise and the chimes all at the same time. And of course you can't do that on a mono synth or any other synth unless you have lots of oscillators to work with. Let's go to another preset that I made. Well, I shouldn't say it's a preset, it's a custom sound. This is the yeah, I was trying to emulate a Rhodes electric piano. And let's see, let's take another tone that I created. That's just the bass with a kind of a wow wow front to it. And so there we have the Roland synthesizer. So the synthesizer is a creative tool, and if you want to use it for a creative tool, then that is the kind of keyboard you're looking for. If you're looking for something that's already got sounds in it that are made up because you're afraid to do any programming, maybe you're just starting out, you might be looking for what's would be a sample playback or a PCM type synth where it has sampled sounds in it, like a trumpet or a trombone or a piano or electric piano. And you're looking for one that allow you to do at least some editing on those sounds so you can start to get used to changing sounds. If you buy a synthesizer that doesn't allow editing, you end up with something that you get bored with very quickly because you got the same sounds, and a lot of the cheaper synths won't allow you to layer more than two of them together. Now when you layer sounds together, of course, you can get all new sounding sounds that way. But if there's only two layers and you're limited to two layers, you're going to get tired of those sounds pretty quick too. But the synthesizer is made to, it gives you the possibility of creating a sound that no one on this history of the earth has ever heard before. And that's what's cool about it. So I'm not sure why this synthesizer isn't been hailed as the greatest synth ever built, but to me, at $500 to $600 and 3 oscillators, 3 LFOs, 3 filters, 3 filter envelopes, 3 filter amps, and 3 filter amp envelopes, built-in effects that sound really good. Plus, you can add your own afterwards, of course. You have a D-beam controller that you can assign to different things so that you can get another source of modulation other than the typical mod wheels. Now this one doesn't use a wheel. This one is actually, I like this one much better than the dual wheels because it adds, you can tether the modulation and the wheel at the same time. And like I said, there's behind the panel controls, you can push the shift key and you can assign this modulation and bender to any control on here that you want. Same way with the D-beam. It can be assigned to, right now it's assigned to the pitch shifter. But I could hold it down and assign it to the filter. So we got lots of modulation control with this, and we also got built-in arpeggiator, which I don't really. You cannot make your own arpeggios. You have 64 built in, which you'll probably find something you like in there. You have 64 built in, but not the opportunity to build your own. But you do have a built-in phrase sequencer. We have a phrase recorder in here, and you can actually build up your own arpeggio with the phrase sequencer, or you can use the phrase sequencer to just play chords or whatever. But the phrase sequencer gives you a nice opportunity to put in some chord progressions and then let go of the keyboard and maybe play your guitar with it, or play another instrument with it. So the Roland, it goes pretty deep. I'm not going to, this isn't a tutorial. I'm not going to go deep into it. I'll just give you a nice introduction to it and put out the question of, why isn't this a more popular synthesizer? I think it's the best synthesizer ever built as a digital synth. I want to separate digital from analog because when you say the best, I mean this is a synthesizer that can create just about anything that's in your imagination with the three of everything on here. And plus, it's only a $600 synth. This has MIDI in and MIDI out, the standard output left and right, phones output, and it has a USB connection as well as a USB memory stick so you can store and back up all your hard work on your presets. One of the big things about this is it has an 1/8 inch external in, and what you'll find is the USB out is not only MIDI but it's audio. So if you have an external mixer, and you send your external mixer outputs into this stereo 1/8 inch input, you can send this through the USB to your computer, and now you have a stereo audio interface card. It not only will it put MIDI in, but it'll put audio into your computer. Another big advantage. And also behind the control panel here is the 128 general MIDI sound card. So this synthesizer is either 64 or 128 polyphony. I can't remember. But plenty enough polyphony that you're never going to run out playing the synth. So, we got all that extra polyphony in there. If you MIDI cable in another instrument, you can play the built-in general MIDI instruments from another keyboard. Which means if you sequence something and output it through MIDI back into the keyboard or through USB from your computer, now you have an instrument that can play drums, bass, and instrument backing while you actually play the synth over the top of it. And there'll be plenty enough polyphony to do that. So what you don't see on this synth is all the power behind the panel, and what you don't see is this front panel is ×3. You got all of this plus another one plus another one, and that I mean, this thing's really spoiled me. I've been wanting to buy a analog synth for a long time, but all the analog synths out there only have 2 oscillators, one filter envelope. And when I think about what I want to do with it, I go, well, I can't really take that synth very far, because between the 2 oscillators, one filter envelope, the sounds aren't going to get all that very complex. Plus, most of the synths are mono synths, so you can't even add in chords. You can't even add in chords to add flavor to the sound you create on one of those analog synths. But analog is growing by leaps and bounds. You got the Korg mini log now that it's a 4 voice. You can play up to 4 note chords on it. You have the Behringer Deep Mind, I think it's called. I think that's a 8 voice where you can play up to 8. And those are analog synths. So those things are really coming ahead in time too. So I'm going to just bide my time and see what happens on the analog front, and if I can find a good deal on a used or open box Korg mini log, I'll probably pick that up. But this is going to remain this has always been my go-to synth for any kind of sound that I want to that's in my head. This is the easiest way to create it. Everything's in front of you. It doesn't take long. Plus you can experiment too. You can get just completely lost in this synthesizer, like I was trying to lose myself at the beginning of the video at that first first part of that video where I was working that one tone. So I hope this clears up any confusion out there of why this synth has been around now for 6, 7, 8 years, and I hope it's around for another 20 years or more. Or they just improve it by putting more in here. I mean, they could build this and put 6 tones in here and I would be even happier. I'd be looking for that as a second synth. So for $600, it's basically at a price level that everybody can afford a synth, because $600 is basically the bottom basement price of any quality synth. And this is a Roland product. I've had Roland products ever since I bought my first synth back in the 80s. First synth was a Roland. I've never ever had a Roland product go bad. Roland products have been rock solid all the way through my entire lifetime of playing synths. You compare that to Alesis or Behringer, where I'm lucky if I can keep maybe 20% of what I buy. Roland's just rock solid for dependability. Well, that's the review, and no, I don't get paid by Roland. This is just to me, this is just the perfect example of a digital synthesizer. And the only way you could make it better is to buy a second one, put it back here, and have six oscillators to work with. That would be dreamy too. I don't mean to get stupid, but yeah, working with 6 oscillators, 6 envelopes, 6 filters, you could really start doing the kind of things that they're doing with the $25,000 Moog modular synth. So it's this. So it's a kind of a poor boy's Moog synth. Now, Now even the $25,000 Moog is still a mono synth, and even though it may have 6 to 8 oscillators, where you could assign each one it's still not a polysynth. You still can't play chords on it like you can with this one. So if you're recording, this might be all the synth you ever need. If you're playing live, you may really want to consider an analog synth. I really think they sound good. Well, that's the review. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.